everybody. Welcome back to episode number 2 of season 3 of In the Green Room with Aidan Keene. Before we jump into today's episode, I just want to take a moment to recognize someone very special. For many of us in the rock and roll world, our introduction to rock and roll and to the guitar and to the idea of being larger than life came from Ace Frehley. There was just something about him, the sound, his stage presence, that stuck with you. And I'm joined today by someone who got to spend a lot of time with Ace on the road in the Ace Frehley Band. Mr. Jeremy Asbrock. Jeremy, thank you so much for being here.
You're so welcome. Hi, everybody. It's good to be here.
It's such an honor to have you here because, Ace has been a hero of mine for so many years, and to have someone on here that spent so much time with him and toured with him is really cool.
Man, I know the feeling. I was and still am that person also. I mean, I got into Ace at an extremely young age, and I honestly don't remember life before Kiss, kind of. It sounds weird, but, I was about 4 years old, and I bought side 3 and 4 of Alive 2 from a kid that lived behind us that was my brother's age, 6 years older. And my older brother said, "Get that one. It has Shout It Out Loud," because he was going to sell them for 50 cents a piece, no album cover. Mom gave me 50 cents to get one. Get that one. It has Shout It Out Loud. And we went in and put it on. And man, between like the volume of the crowd and the energy of the band and then the bombs going off, I really didn't know what it was. Like, I mean, I knew music, but this otherworldly thing. I just knew I had to be part of whatever that is. I didn't know like playing concerts or any of that stuff. I just knew like this is me, you know.
Right.
Which
That's
also goes for like all the people that say Kiss is nothing but, image and bombs and all of that stuff. I mean, when I was that young, all we had was just like an album cover to look at. There were no videos, there was nothing to watch. It was the music. And I was so young, it was all music. It wasn't girls, it wasn't any of that. It was the music.
right. And last week I was joined by Rich Kosak from Mr. Speed,
Yeah.
and he had a similar story, getting that album when he was a kid and just immediately being drawn to Kiss. And I should mention too that you've also toured with Gene Simmons, and that
Yeah.
my first real question for you is, when you were growing up with Kiss, was there a member that you were immediately drawn to, or was it just
It
the whole thing?
Well, those were my 2 guys. I mean, it was
Yeah.
Ace first because I don't know, there was something about the guitar, his laid back, cool persona. Gene was a little scary, but I still liked him more than, the other guys. So they were my 2.
So how did you end up on stage with both of them? And how did that even come together?
So with Gene, I guess I have to backtrack a little bit. I joined an 80s metal cover band led by Ryan Cook called Big Rock Show. And he was friends with Doc McGee. And when Kiss were going on their first cruise, Doc told Ryan, "Hey, man, you should bring your cover band on the cruise." And I didn't even know Ryan at that time, but through 2 mutual friends, when they were looking for a guitar player, I got a referral. And I wound up joining his band and then going on the first Kiss cruise a month and a half later. And then we went on the next one. And then we went on the next one and the next one. So by that time, everybody in the band were aware of us, and, the shows were right in front of the headliner cabin. So I know they heard us too. And Ryan had a pretty good reputation in the Kiss camp and Doc and stuff. So when Gene was putting out the vault, he was doing these things with Wizard World, which are kind of like Comic Con, and they wanted a show to tie in. So he asked Brian to put together a band. I'm a shoe in on that. I mean, we're friends because of Kiss. We love Kiss together, and then Phil Schaus, who I had a thing in Nashville called the Rock and Roll Residency. Him and Ryan were friends. I don't know. We were just all really close friends, and we're all friends because of Kiss. And at first, Gene was just going to sing and we were going to pass the bass around, but luckily good sense prevailed and Gene played bass. And We didn't really see the need to get rid of a guitar player. In fact, that like opened up doors. I know everybody is used to the format of Kiss being two guitar, bass, drums. But with three guitars, you could do things like the Christine 16 harmony solo and not lose the rhythm guitar, or, any song that had a two guitar solo, you don't have to lose that rhythm guitar. And it just, did wonders for the vocals also because, we sing really good together. And it was only supposed to be 6 shows, and it turned into basically a world tour.
What a dream come true that must have been.
It was pretty crazy to think. I mean, I never I never dreamt of, like, being in anybody's band from Kiss. Like, Gene Gene was in Kiss, he wasn't gonna need a solo band, and Ace is the guitar player, like, so what am I gonna do?
Right. And so I've heard different stories, and I'm not sure which is true. I mean, I've heard Ace talk about it, but is it true that Ace stole you from Gene's band, or was there a mutual
That's
agreement there?
that's not really true.
Okay.
Um So we did a tour of Australia in August, September of 2018, and with Gene. And somewhere along the way, Ace got added as an opener.
Mhm.
And then he asked Gene if he could use us because he couldn't afford to bring his band over, and he was going to Japan from there. And Gene was like, "If it's okay with them, I don't care." And so that was kind of how that came to pass. I've also heard he was looking to make a change with his band also. That's just from secondhand sources around Ace. So I know at that point, if this is like September of 2018 and the end of the road tour started in January of 2019, they were already putting that tour together. In fact, it was probably already booked. Gene knew he was going back to Kiss. He wanted us to stay busy when he went to do that. And, he loved Ace and he thought we were a great band and, we would, you know, be good support behind Ace. So in Australia, Gene told me that Ace was going to ask us to do the Kiss cruise because Ace was going to be on the Kiss cruise that following October. And I'm just like, okay, well, how do you feel about that? He's just like, no ego here, man, go do it. Like, help him ride off into the sunset. Okay. And that was it. We went to Japan from there with Ace. Ace asked us to be his band. We accepted. Gene only had one more show left that year anyway, and there was like nothing planned beyond that because he'd planned on spending the next 5 years touring the world with Kiss.
I'm really glad to hear that too, because there's so many things that have circulated about bad blood with the end of the road tour and everything. We don't have to get into that, but it's nice to hear that Ace and Gene had a nice brotherhood there.
You know what, man? For a moment there, they were really good.
Yeah.
It was fun to watch. I mean, on that Australian tour, the shows were great, but the best part of it was hanging out in the airport lounges with them together and them just yakking about the old days and like being cool with each other. It was a highlight. Absolutely. Like not a lot of people get that moment, and I got it 5 days in a row.
Right, and you get to see them all, like you said, just off stage, rehearsals, backstage, traveling and stuff. And it seems like, based on what I've seen and heard, that Ace was so fun off stage. I see those videos on YouTube, the shopping with
Yeah.
Ace videos, and those crack me up. What's something about Ace that fans wouldn't expect, maybe off stage?
Uh, that sometimes he'll call you on the phone and just talk about regular life stuff that affects everybody. Like Gene didn't do that. Gene didn't talk about things. He was a great conversationalist. You could learn from him and like have you know great conversation. But I don't know. Ace could be more on a personal level. Ace liked to give hugs. He was a little bit of a deeper dude.
That's cool. And that's really special to hear that. And, like I said before, he's a hero, and when he passed, that was extremely heartbreaking. I mean, I'm almost through college now, and I've been in some rock bands through my teenage years, and in high school, one of the first songs that we did was New York Groove in all of our shows, and people just lit up. They ate that up every time we did it. So, and we're Boston based, so the fact that they liked that song was
Yeah.
cool. But it's really special music, and it's really cool to hear those stories that you have.
Uh, it's still wild to me that it even happened. Like, now that he's gone, it feels kinda like a dream,
Mm,
you know?
I bet. Because I mean, you lose someone like that, and they're like well, heard Kiss being compared to superheroes, and especially when you're young and you're really just diving into that rock thing. They are your superhero, and you think that they're gonna live forever. But at least I always say, at least the music is gonna keep us going through.
That actually the tribute shows that we have coming up kinda made me realize that that's how it all lives on. Because at first, I kinda resigned myself to the fact that it was over and, our guy is gone, so our band is gonna break up and that's it. But that's not it. That this is how, since we were one of the lineups of his band, that's how people can kinda stay connected to him is through people like us, and not just me, man, like everybody that was in Ace's band. Everybody in Ace's band has the right and the freedom to go out and play these songs also. I mean, it kinda belongs to them too, but it belongs to you. It belongs to the people in the crowd, and, you know, there are definitely people out there that wanna hear it and want it to stay alive.
Absolutely. And what can the audience expect from this tour? You're gonna dive deeper into
Yes,
Ace's
so we're
catalog.
gonna do the '78 solo album. Like, we did that with Ace one time, so we've kind of already done the homework.
Hmm.
We're gonna do that and, just some of Ace's greatest Kiss hits and a few deep cuts. Uh, we're not gonna dive too far into the Fraley's Comet stuff. There are other bands that do that, and, that stuff was okay. It didn't mean as much to me as, his Kiss contributions.
Right.
And that's what, me and this version of his band all kinda relate on is that stuff.
That's one question that I had for you because I noticed over the years Ace's set list changed a little bit. Like when I saw you guys play, there wasn't a whole lot of Kiss songs. It was mostly Ace solo and stuff like that. But I noticed on the set list for the last tour or two, he kind of added a lot more Kiss into it, or at least that's how it seemed.
Well, there was a method to that madness. At that point, Kiss had retired, so that meant Kiss as a live entity was gone, and there was nobody out there playing Kiss music, you
Right.
know, like, namely a member of Kiss, because this was all done before Gene got a new band and started doing his set list also, which was, obviously pretty Kiss heavy. But Ace got a new agent, so he was just kinda looking to fill that void and, get bigger shows, more fairs and casinos and, bigger things, and he was gonna do that playing Kiss stuff. And, man, like, I read stuff online, I pay attention to, what people are digging and not digging, and, I know there was a lot of people asking for Fraley's Comet stuff, and at the beginning of 2023, I got a couple songs in the set, but man, it just didn't do anything. Like, we play the songs and it was like nothing. Maybe there's 3 or 4 people out there yelling because we played Stranger in a Strange Land, but by and large, you kind of felt an energy dip. And then you do Detroit Rock City and, it's like peak energy level, which those are the people that wanted that song to go because that's not an Ace song. But to me, every Kiss song is an Ace song if he plays on it,
Right.
you know? I'm a guitar player, and I'm not a guitar player because of Gene's growling vocal in Calling Dr. Love. I'm a guitar player because the fucking solo kicks ass.
You know.
So, I don't buy into that whole That's not an Ace song. Those are Paul and Gene songs. If Ace played the solo, then it's a fucking Ace Frehley song too.
Right. That's all. And I mean, I'm happy that, Paul and Gene and everyone tends to give the credit where credit is due for Ace because, like you say, he makes those songs what they are. And the reason that inspires so many musicians is because of Ace. So he definitely deserves that.
He does. I've had to go over a lot of these solos with a magnifying glass because before Ace was playing those solos and I just played rhythm guitar. Now I'm playing the bulk of the solos, and man, there's just some great compositions in there. I mean, there's flashy technique. I've had to learn some solos from another thing I'm involved in where the guitar players are, noteworthy guitar players who play fast and shit. And man, having having learned all of these solos like around the same time, man, there's just something to be said for something that's not flash but so musical.
There's one of my favorite stories. I didn't experience it personally, but someone I knew came to see you guys a year or two ago in Rhode Island at the Stadium Theater, and there was some sound issues there. And it went on for like 10, 15 minutes, I
Okay,
guess.
I remember this, and Ace is just
Yeah,
sitting around on stage while they deal with stuff.
throwing water bottles into the crowd. I thought
Yeah,
that was great. That's a good way to kill time for him.
well, it was excruciating on stage.
I bet. I
That
bet.
was the longest, weirdest. If that was 10 minutes, that was the longest 10 minutes of my life.
It might have been longer. It may have been longer.
I kind of feel like it was, but it felt like an hour to me.
So going back to the memorial tour, how many shows are you doing? Is this something that you're gonna trial run first, or
No, I mean he's working on shows and adding shows. All as far as like confirmed right now, we have Webster, New York, and Rome, New York, and that's at the beginning of April. And then we're doing a show here in Nashville, which was like kind of where the whole thing began. It's actually the Australian tour lineup. Me, Ryan, Philip Schaus, and Christopher Williams. We were planning on just doing one show, like close to Ace's birthday in Nashville, and then that was when some light bulbs went off elsewhere, and you know we agreed to do these. There's one at the end of June somewhere. I would have to look at my calendar. I'm not sure. And then we're going to Australia in the middle of September. And I know they're trying to add some stuff around that also. So, I mean, as soon as that Australian tour got announced, you know, word was out and our agent's phone started ringing. So there, there will be more shows for sure.
I will certainly advocate to get you guys out in Massachusetts too, because I know I'd love to see it, and honor Ace in that way. That's really cool.
I'm pretty excited. I mean, that's my favorite band of musicians that I have are these guys. We travel well together. We can finish each other's sentences. Musically, there's not a lot of guesswork. Each guy knows who's doing what. It's just it's a good lineup of the band.
And it's cool that you can carry it on too. I mean, vocally and musically. I mean, when you guys performed on the landlocked cruise there in November, that sounded really solid.
Thanks, man. I mean, Ace is my guy. Philip and I had a Kiss tribute band called Blonder Than Hell. We do it, around the holidays every year and do a toy drive, canned food. So, I mean, I can do Ace. It's my thing.
And aside from all this awesome stuff coming up for Ace, looking at your shirt there's another tour that you were telling me about that I'd love to
Yeah,
hear
I just
more.
brought this one back. This is his new album cover. Yeah, John Corabi has a new album coming out next month. It's freaking awesome. Uh, it's basically all the music that we listen to. It's Beatles and Queen and Creed's Clearwater Revival and Bob Seger. I mean, just great 60s, 70s influenced music.
That's awesome. How extensive is that tour? Is it still going
Oh
on?
yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely. We're going back to Europe at the end of April and then coming back and opening for Tom Kiefer for 2 weeks up in the Northeast over to Wisconsin. And then We're playing the Ryman in Nashville, Tennessee on May 28th or 29th. I can't remember, but I'm pretty excited about that. I mean, anybody from Nashville, that's one of those gigs. Very cool. And then we're opening for Tom Kiefer again in mid-July. Tornado Alley, Oklahoma, St. Louis, somewhere.
I was just in Nashville for the first time last week. We stopped in. We were in Memphis because I'm a huge Elvis fan, so we were at Graceland,
Oh,
but we
cool.
stopped in Nashville on the way home. Definitely gonna go back.
It's definitely different.
Yeah, I had never experienced anything like that before.
It's only been this Nashville for maybe 10, 12 years or so. It's a whole different thing than what I grew up with.
I wasn't sure what to expect, but we were driving through and I saw a bar on wheels going by me on the street and all sorts of stuff. It was crazy. But I would love to go back. That'd be really cool.
Man, it's fun. Like if you aren't from here, I could see what the attraction is.
Looking back, on your entire career, with Gene, Ace, and all the various tours that you've done, and I'm sure there's so many, so this is really a broad question, but what moments have shaped who you are as a musician in the strongest way?
Uh, so there was a show that I co-hosted in Nashville called the Rock and Roll Residency. Philip Schaus and I put it together. Uh, that had a huge shaping because we played every Tuesday for 5 years, and the thing of the show was like deep 60s and 70s rock, and we played thousands and thousands and thousands of songs, and it went from AM radio to new wave of British heavy metal and everything in between. So there were so many different styles and guitar players styles and just so many different things I learned as a player and as a singer and backup singer. I I can't say enough about what that did for me and to me as a musician. I mean, learning that many songs. And then, at the same time, we're kind of hiring out and getting lots of gigs as a result of that. So you're learning those people's catalogs. And I mean, just what it did for me as a live musician, uh, even as like just a soloist, and how to different approaches I can take towards playing guitar solos if I have creative freedom, instead of just replicating what somebody else is doing. That show took me from being a good musician to a great musician.
And one thing that I really admire about you and anyone that can do it, because I can play a little guitar. I am nowhere near on yours or Ace's level, but I would like to be at some point. But you're also, aside from all this stuff, a teacher I saw, and you do guitar lessons.
When I have time, since we're not doing Ace shows, which Ace had a pretty steady calendar every year. I knew what to expect. I've definitely had a lot more holes, and you fill the holes where you can. And I have two children, so I'm good at communicating with kids and people that are learning. So I don't know, just seemed like a good time to do it. I did it back in COVID too, when nobody was doing shows.
Right. And having had so many experiences on the road and seen so many aspects of rock and roll life, for younger players who are aspiring to be a rock and roll musician, what do they need to understand about the life on the road?
That it's you see the stage photos and it looks fantastic, but everything in between is actually a lot of work. The traveling is a lot of work and it makes you very tired. And the older you get, the harder it gets. When you're in your 20s, I don't know, it's fun. You could bounce back so easily, and you could drink all night or stay up all night and still have your voice the next day. That the older you get, when you start making a living, you've got to take care of your body and you know treat it with some care. That it's not a party. It's definitely something that it is work and requires maintenance and care. People don't understand that the travel it is work.
And it's definitely the hardest part. I'm turning 21 next month, and out here I do an Elvis tribute show. And the summer is always my busiest time, but last summer I think I did just 4 or 5 shows in a row, which it doesn't sound crazy, but I will never do it. I can't do it again.
So on the tour that I just did with John Corabi in Europe, we did 4 shows, day off, which was really a travel day,
Mhm.
4 shows, day and a half off, and then 4 shows, and then we were done. So it was like 3, 4 in a row.
It scared me because I thought about it afterwards, after the second show, and I'm like, if I keep going, I might not be at my best vocally. So and I see what you're saying about having to really care for yourself and
Yeah.
take it easy
And
on
like
it.
I'm type 1 diabetic, so I really have to pay attention to like taking care of myself.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
that
Definitely, I bet that would probably make it quite difficult at points.
it not so much anymore because I've been diabetic for let's see, 20 years this year, actually 20 years this month. Uh, so, it's just kind of another day for me, but it does require 24-hour attention.
That's what I was just about to say. I mean, I'm sure aside from a lot of perseverance, there's probably a lot of pre-show routine that would go into taking care of yourself for that.
Eh, not really.
No.
Just looking at numbers, making sure everything's cool. I wear a bunch of gizmos on my body that help
Yeah.
manage everything. And, there's not really anything specific that I have to do. I just have to pay attention.
That was another thing, kind of backtracking to Ace a little bit, that I've heard several different stories about pre-show routines with Ace. I've heard that he didn't like to do sound checks and would just show up and rock.
Man, I can count on one hand the number of times Ace came to sound check.
So
And
that's a
and
true
every
story.
time he did, it was always like, why? Ace is coming to sound check today. I'm like, okay.
But you guys still had to do it. That's awesome. I kind of thought that story might be true, just having heard that.
Ace didn't come to sound check, and Ace showed up like right when it was time to go on stage. He did not like hanging out, because he always had to hang out after the show and do his meet and greet. So he would show up 5 minutes before showtime, go to his dressing room, drink some tea for a second, and then we're on. Sometimes I knew he was there because the intro music started and like, okay, he's here.
That was the cue. That was, yeah, I really would have loved to have met Ace and just, yeah, thank him for everything. Getting to see him live, man, that was an experience. And like we were talking about before we started recording, that show pushed the limits of that sound system at the theater. And I heard that from someone that worked there. And it certainly was one of the loudest shows I had ever seen, but damn, it was cool.
I started wearing earplugs because of Ace. I mean, if you think it was loud out front, when you stand in his world where there's 3 monitors on stun and then 2 Marshall cabinets cocked back, aimed at your head, it was, uh, it was something.
I bet. And seeing that smoking solo live, I mean, that seemed to be different. That wasn't a rehearsed thing, was it? That solo that he.
Not really. He would
Oh,
just, the only thing is when he turns the thing on, Rocco, the guitar tech, hits the delay
just goes.
and he would always turn it on for a second before, let's see, most of the time we did Shock Me, but later on we opened with Shock Me, and then he would do it after Cold Gin. He would always turn it on for a second, and people never got that he was doing that on purpose. Like I said, I read a lot. I read a lot of the feedback. I probably shouldn't, but I do. And no, people somehow miss. No, he's doing that on purpose.
When it comes to Ace pushing the limits of sound, like we spoke about, when you play in different venues, are there venues that kind of try to get you guys not to do it, or Are there any venues that try to get it to be a lower of a production than what
Yeah,
it's wanted?
uh, I don't know about production. There are venues that had decibel limits,
Hmm,
and we had to work within that. And sometimes that's hard because Ace will just come out on stage, and the first thing he does is turn up my guitar, turn up my guitar, turn up my vocals, turn it up, 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 up.
right.
Uh, but the smoker guitar is not actual smoke. It works like basically like a vape pen. It's a vaporizer
Hmm,
with vape juice. So that's legal. That nobody really ever asked for that. That was the main reason they did that switch, because there were places that wouldn't allow the smoke thing when it was like, you know, lighting off a smoke bomb inside his guitar.
right.
So no, not really. I mean, it was all cool.
That's cool. Yeah, I study audio engineering and things like that in school. So when we learn about stage plots and things like that, I always think about, Kiss and Ace and Gene and the difficulties that they might have faced when they go to these venues. But that's cool that he could kind of just do whatever, unless there was a limit.
Gene was a lot easier. He kind of just didn't care. As
Mm,
long as he had a lyric sheet for the songs he didn't know, and you know, Bill was his bass tech back then because there was no crew in his band at all. As long as the bass had a decent growl, he was pretty easy.
that's cool. I know I haven't seen Gene either. Aside from I was at Kiss's penultimate concert at Madison Square Garden, but that was the only time I saw Gene live. But maybe someday I'll see him in the band too.
His band's good. I kind of prefer the set list that we were doing with him because
Mm.
we went a little deeper, but also read that he's at his shows this year. He's going to add more deep stuff. So we'll see. I miss playing with Gene. He was a fun gig.
Yeah, he seems like a fun guy.
Totally.
Despite the
I love hanging out with Gene. He'd like to hang out before and after, have dinner together, have breakfast together. He liked being part of the band. Ace kind of did his own thing.
and I saw maybe it was yesterday that they're looking at doing another Kiss cruise in 2027. Maybe it's a landlocked one. I'm not sure. Are you guys going to be
Uh,
involved with it?
no idea. I mean, even this one we kind of got added at the last minute to a pre-party, so
Right.
I never know. I mean, hell, we all thought Kiss was done and they weren't going to do anything 2 years ago. So
It's true. And I want to ask you too, because I asked Rich Kosak of Mr. Speed this question, and his answer was immediate. What do you think of the Kiss avatars? That's what he said. That's exactly what he said. He just immediately.
I'm not even going to give it a thumbs down. I kind of just don't care. I'll probably go see it when it comes out just to see it. But as far as like any excitement level, I mean, my Kiss is 1974 to 1982. That's my Kiss.
Me too. Yeah. The original lineup, it doesn't get better than that. And I respect all the lineups,
I'm just glad that I was really young, but I still got to experience the original lineup when they were Kiss.
Yeah, there's
Luckily I had an older brother and all of it. Even though he kind of liked it, he had friends that were really into it. So like, I don't know, it was just kind of always around, and I got into it as a result of that too.
and it's not even just the music. I mean, Business Geniuses, mostly Gene, but I mean,
No, that's not that's a big
no?
misconception. No,
Okay.
Gene wants you to think that, but I mean, that they they are an entity. Paul Stanley has just as much, if not more, say in all things Kiss than anybody. And in the early days, I kind of think like Bill O'Coin is deserves a little more attention than he probably gets for a lot of that stuff, because Kiss were being a band and touring and doing that stuff. Later on, Paul and Gene definitely drove the car a little more, so to speak. But I've seen it. Like I went to Gene's house once, and he showed me this gigantic book. I mean, it was like a couple feet tall, and it's all just ideas, and they would yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and Paul Stanley deserves equal credit for any business decisions that are made.
Okay, that's good to know. And that I wouldn't have. I mean, I would have thought that he had some say, but everyone says that Gene is the brain behind Kiss, so that's good to know.
That's not true.
There's a local flea market around here, and there's a guy that has an entire section devoted to Kiss, and it's really cool for me to see these things that were so huge at the time, like the Kiss radio. He has a few Kiss radios, and the lunch boxes, and the flexi dolls, and it's amazing to see what was so huge then. But you can see why, because it was so different.
And other than the Beatles and Elvis, bands just didn't do that kind of thing. Like it was so new.
I mean, yeah, and that's another thing. Speaking of things being new, I want to get your take on the parents' vision of Kiss in the 70s. You know, you listen
Well, they
to
were definitely scarier. You
yeah,
know, I
but
mean, Gene and his blood thing was kind of scary for parents of 40-year-olds. My parents were pretty cool about it, though. I mean, they still bought me Kiss records and Kiss shirts. They took me to see Kiss when I was 7, which was I don't I don't even know how to like put that experience into words. I didn't I was 7, so I thought you had to go to New York to see Kiss
mm,
because in the records, like it was just New York, New York, New York, since they were a New York based band. So I didn't know bands went on tour and like played different cities. So when my mom said, "Hey, we got you tickets to see Kiss," I just didn't understand. And then when I saw Night Ranger were opening the show, I didn't understand that either. Like, well, what does that mean? Like, are they going to play songs in between Kiss songs? Like, I just didn't get the whole thing. And it was the Creatures of the Night tour also. So it was like,
okay.
I still got to see Kiss before they took their makeup off. I did know that Vinnie Vincent was going to be there and not Ace because that was, you know, already a thing in the news by then. I was pretty disappointed, but I still knew it was happening. And then my parents had to pick me up from school the next day because I had strep throat.
Oh, jeez. I had a similar thing happen actually, and I can tell this story now because I couldn't then because it would have gotten me in trouble, but it was 11 years ago, so I never was one to fake sick to get out of school. Um, but I did at one point. I thought I was faking, so I did such a good job. They brought me to the doctors. It turns out I had strep throat. I still went to see Neil Diamond the next day though, because I wasn't contagious anymore. But man, damn strep throat.
So you were like 10 or 11 and you would see Neil Diamond?
I was 10, yeah.
That's great.
Oh, I
You,
love
you,
all that stuff. I've seen so many legends too. I've seen Tony Bennett live. I got to see him when I was 8, and Neil Diamond, Frankie Valli, the Beach Boys 9 times.
so how does a kid get into music like that? Like what was your exposure that led you to, like crooners and stuff like that?
He's gonna love this because this is the third episode I've got to say this. It was all my dad. I was really into a group for kids called the Wiggles when I was young.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, and I always say I think my dad got a little sick of it, so he gave me my first Elvis CD, and I played it every day, and I it was really a passion. My dad, his hero was Roy Orbison, and so I listened to a lot of Roy Orbison growing up, and Neil Diamond and things like that. And that's what I do now. That's my job. I have a nursing home and senior center circuit around here that I go and I perform these songs, and I'm getting into some theater shows this year with some other people that have yet to be announced yet.
That's very cool. That's how music stays alive because as all of these all of these artists pass on and they're all kind of up there that their music lives on through people like us.
Right. And that's the best part about the whole thing. I love it when people, because I do other artists too. Like in my shows, I'll do a Buddy Holly tribute act and Johnny Cash. And sometimes, it's mostly when it comes to Elvis, but sometimes people will approach me and say, I saw, name that person that you're doing. it live in concert and you were the closest thing to seeing, then that's always really cool to hear that.
So here's my connection to Elvis. When Elvis died, my dad was in the Air National Guard and he was stationed in Memphis.
Mhm.
So when he passed away, they called out the Air National Guard to work security because so many people showed up at Graceland. So my dad was one of the people that got to work Graceland as security when Elvis passed away,
Wow.
and they were feeding all the troops out of Elvis's kitchen.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I mean, I knew all the people showed up. It was crazy, but that's really cool. Graceland is a special place. I've been there twice now, and people still flock to it.
man, I haven't been there since 1996.
It's developed a lot. The whole complex. It's crazy. But it's amazing that these artists just they make such an impact, and even so many years later, it doesn't die. And I think it's gonna be that way with Ace. I think that music is gonna go on forever.
Man, I was very happy to see the response that he got, you know, in the press.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew it would be far and wide, but it was even bigger than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, when it was not long before Halloween that Ace passed, and my band had a gig on Halloween. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do the Spaceman thing tonight, I think. So my girlfriend and I, she's in the band, and we did the makeup. Totally last minute decision, and people were they thought that was really cool. So I had to honor him, to do that.
That's cool.
But I have a few speed round questions here for you that I did in my last episode with Rich, and I want to do it with you too, because it's always cool to hear these answers from a fellow Kiss fan.
All right, I'll do my best.
Okay, I'll start easy, then I got a little longer one. Favorite Kiss album?
Maybe the first album?
Okay, that's a good one. I like that. I think mine's Alive too. I don't know. I've always been.
I was gonna guess I was gonna say that one, but I I don't know. Uh, Song for song, the first album is pretty fucking awesome, even if the production's not like the best. I don't hate it either. I'm not one of those people that thinks the production on that and Hotter Than Hell sucks. It's just it is what it is. But Alive 2 was my first, so I don't know. Right now, I'm going with the first album.
Cool. All right. And so this next question, it can be either a Gene song, Kiss song, an Ace song. What is your favorite song to perform live?
She
Well, yeah, I love
because
that one.
me and the guys get to sing it, and then when I would play it with Ace, we would do the solo that's on Dress to Kill, which is, you know, starts out as an octave and then goes into a harmony solo. So he and I would do it together. So that song was always a lot of fun.
One I'm very curious about. What is the most difficult song to play on any given night? No, there's no.
I don't really have an answer for that. There's nothing difficult for me
Mhm.
playing Kiss songs. It's the easiest thing you can ask me to do.
That's dedication right there. That just proves the dedication. And this one, I'm curious about because I have my answer, but say you're meeting someone that has no idea who Kiss is, not a clue, and you have to give them three Kiss songs to introduce them to Kiss. Which songs would you choose?
It's like in my brain going through
It's so tough because there's so many different.
palatable songs for somebody. I guess that also depends on what their taste in rock music in general is.
Mm.
Um,
We can narrow
hmm.
it down. We can say original lineup, early, you know.
Well, I definitely would have picked something from the first, you know, 1974 to 1978.
Mhm.
God, that's a hard question. I think I'd pick the live version of Shout It Out Loud
Mhm.
because God, I know what that did to me.
Yep. That's definitely
Uh,
one of mine.
I might pick She. She's a good grooving song, cool solo. Sorry, I'm running every song, every side, every record right now.
That's okay.
Maybe Deuce. I mean, lyrically, it's not like the greatest song in the world, but like, I don't know, drop the needle on a live and this band comes out playing that. It's pretty energetic and badass.
I think I would say shout it out loud, Detroit Rock City, and even Beth, just to kind of show them the versatility of sound.
Yeah.
But I
That's why
mean,
I said, like, well, it depends on like what their taste in rock music is or music in general,
yeah,
you
because
know.
there's so many great ones. I mean, and that's where the solo albums come into play because they're all so different. I mean, Peter Criss doing a version of Tossin' and Turnin', and Gene Simmons doing When You Wish Upon a Star. I mean, it's like,
You know, Gene made us do that song live one time,
really?
once in Monoman, Minnesota, and none of us wanted to do it, but he insisted, and we did it, and we never did it again.
Is there video footage of that?
There might be.
I
I'm
gotta
not
try to
looking for
find
it.
it. I gotta try to find it. That is the coolest thing for some reason to
No,
me.
it was not cool.
No. How did the crowd take it?
I don't know. It was the last thing we played, and I remember leaving going like, I knew that was a bad idea.
Man, that's awesome. I mean, it wasn't awesome for you, I guess, but that sounds awesome. Well, Jeremy, I really appreciate your time and your stories today. This has been really cool, just getting to hear all these things because
Yeah, man. If you see us coming up in that area, give me a shout.
I absolutely will. I would even make a road trip for this show, honestly. We just got back from a road trip to Memphis. We drove out there, but I would drive to New York.
It's brutal. We're playing in Patchogue, New York. That's where the show is at the end of June.
Okay. I will definitely look into that because I would love to see it.
Yeah, man. Just hit me up.
I will. This has been awesome. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for joining
no
me.
problem, man. Thanks for having me.
And for everyone listening, join me again next time on In the Green Room with Aidan Keene. Until then, may God bless you, and I'll see you soon. Hey, everybody.